The message arrived on a Tuesday, which should have been humanity's first clue that the universe had a twisted sense of humor. Nobody expects an alien ultimatum on a Tuesday. Mondays, sure. Fridays, absolutely. But Tuesday is supposed to be boring. The universe's way of saying nothing important happens today. Go grab a coffee. Instead, every screen on Earth simultaneously displayed the same terrifying image. A massive, scarred alien face with tusks that could probably open cans and eyes that suggested he'd eaten smaller civilizations for breakfast. This was Warlord Kraxus, supreme commander of the Kraxian Empire, and he had some opinions about humanity's continued existence. Pathetic humans, his voice boomed across every communication device on the planet, which was frankly impressive from a technical standpoint, even if the content left something to be desired. Your species has spread through the galaxy like a disease, bringing chaos and disorder wherever you go. General Morrison, sitting in the Pentagon's crisis room, muttered to his aide, "Did he just call us a disease?" That's rich coming from a guy who looks like a warthog had a baby with a garbage disposal. Kraxus continued his cosmic complaint session. The Galactic Council has grown tired of your antics. Therefore, we invoke the ancient right of Kraxtalk Nal, trial by combat. Send your greatest warrior to face our champion on the arena world of Korthak Prime. If your champion wins, your species may continue its chaotic existence. If they lose, well, let's just say real estate prices across Earth are about to drop significantly. The transmission cut out, leaving Earth's leadership staring at blank screens and contemplating their species' apparent knack for making enemies. General Morrison rubbed his temples. Okay, someone explain to me how we managed to annoy an entire galactic empire. Well, sir, his aide began hesitantly. There was that incident with the Terran Mining Consortium accidentally strip mining that sacred moon. And the time Ambassador Williams tried to negotiate that trade deal while drunk, and somehow agreed to sell Venus for a bag of what he thought were space peanuts, added another officer. Plus there's the ongoing situation with human tourists leaving graffiti on ancient alien monuments, chimed in a third. Morrison sighed. Right, so we're essentially the galaxy's problem neighbors. Got it. Now, who exactly do we have who can fight this Kraxian champion without immediately becoming alien sidewalk decoration? The room fell silent except for the uncomfortable shuffling of papers and the distant hum of air conditioning that desperately needed maintenance. Earth's finest military minds suddenly found their boots extremely interesting to stare at. Our best special forces operatives? Morrison prompted. The Kraxians are 9 feet tall and can bench press small vehicles, sir. Our enhanced soldiers? Their weakest children could probably arm wrestle our enhanced soldiers and win, sir. I don't know. Do we have any secret super soldiers I don't know about? No, sir. We have some really good motivational posters, though. Meanwhile, 3 sectors away on Maintenance Station Delta 7, Maya Rodriguez was having what she generously termed a day that could kiss her entire rear end. The station's air recycling system had decided to stage a rebellion. The gravity generators were making sounds that suggested they'd been designed by someone who'd never actually seen gravity work, and she'd been dealing with Station Commander Bradshaw for the past 6 hours. Bradshaw was the kind of man who used the phrase synergistic solutions unironically, and had never met a problem he couldn't make worse by forming a committee about it. Currently, he was standing behind Maya as she worked, offering helpful suggestions like, have you tried turning it off and on again, and maybe it needs more power. Founder, Maya said through gritted teeth while elbow deep in the air recycler's mechanical guts. Unless you've suddenly developed the ability to see through solid metal and diagnose complex mechanical failures using only your remarkable powers of stating the obvious, but maybe you could let me work in peace. Now, Rodriguez, there's no need for that attitude. I'm just trying to help. Maya extracted herself from the machine and turned to face him, her coverall stained with what she really hoped was just industrial lubricant. You want to help? Great. Go find whoever designed this piece of junk and ask them why they thought connecting the primary intake valve to the waste management system was a good idea. I'll be right here, trying to make sure we don't all suffocate while breathing recycled toilet air. Bradshaw's face turned a shade of red that suggested his own blood pressure system could use some maintenance. That's enough, Rodriguez. When you're done with your repairs, report to my office. We need to discuss your attitude problem. My attitude problem? Maya laughed, a sound that contained no actual humor. My attitude problem is that I'm the only person on this station who knows the difference between a hydrospanner and a hole in the ground. And I'm tired of pretending that's not the case. As Bradshaw stormed off, muttering about insubordination and proper chain of command, Maya turned back to her work. She had no idea that at that exact moment, a very different kind of paperwork was being processed in a government office back on Earth, and that someone was about to make a very expensive typo. The mistake happened because intern Thompson had been working for 18 hours straight, surviving on nothing but vending machine coffee and the rapidly diminishing hope that his unpaid internship might someday lead to actual employment. When he was handed a stack of personnel files and told to find someone, anyone, who might be able to fight an alien, his exhausted brain made some creative connections. The form asked for Earth's most capable individual for mechanical combat operations. Thompson, running on fumes and caffeine, saw Maya Rodriguez's file, specialist in mechanical operations, stationed at remote combat-ready facility, extensive experience with hostile working conditions, and aggressive personality management. What the file didn't mention was that mechanical operations meant fixing broken machines, not fighting with them. And aggressive personality management referred to dealing with annoying supervisors, not alien warriors. But Thompson was beyond the point of reading comprehension, and Maya's file went into the potential champion pile. 3 levels of bureaucratic approval later, each person assuming someone else had done the actual vetting, Maya Rodriguez was officially registered as Earth's representative for trial by combat. The paperwork was stamped, filed, and sent to the Galactic Council before anyone bothered to double-check what they'd just committed to. Maya discovered this while attempting to repair gravity generator number 3, which had decided that down was more of a suggestion than a law of physics. She was suspended upside down in the maintenance shaft, muttering creative combinations of profanity and technical specifications, when her comm unit chimed. Rodriguez here. And this better be important because I'm currently having a philosophical debate with gravity and losing. Maya Rodriguez, human mechanical specialist? The voice was crisp, formal, and had the kind of accent that suggested its owner had learned English from very expensive tutoring programs. That's me. If this is about the requisition forms for the new plasma couplers, I already told Bradshaw that we need them before the entire station turns into a very expensive piece of space debris. I am Ambassador Vex of the Galactic Council. I am here to escort you to Korthak Prime for your trial by combat. Maya paused in her work. I'm sorry, could you repeat that? Because it sounded like you said something about combat, and I'm pretty sure I didn't sign up for any fighting. I fix things, I don't break them. Well, I mean, sometimes I break them first, but only so I can fix them better. You are registered as Earth's champion for the Kraxian trial. We must depart immediately. Okay, first of all, I have no idea what a Kraxian is, but it sounds like something that requires a lot more insurance coverage than I currently have. Second, I'm pretty sure there's been a mistake. I'm a mechanic. Not a fighter. The most combat training I have is that one time I had to wrestle a malfunctioning service droid. Human protests are irrelevant. The paperwork has been filed and approved. Your species' fate now rests on your shoulders. Maya managed to extract herself from the gravity generator and found herself face to face with Ambassador Vex, who looked exactly like what would happen if someone crossed a high-end fashion model with a purple eggplant and gave the result a superiority complex. He was tall, impeccably dressed in what appeared to be the galactic equivalent of a 3-piece suit, and radiated the kind of condescending authority that Maya had learned to recognize in bureaucrats across the species barrier. Look, Ambassador Eggplant. Ambassador Vex. Right, Ambassador Vex. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm not a champion. I'm not a warrior. I'm barely qualified to champion a decent cup of coffee, let alone represent my entire species in whatever this trial thing is. Vex consulted a holographic tablet that materialized in his hands. According to our records, you are listed as highly capable in mechanical combat operations with extensive experience in hostile environments. This suggests significant martial prowess. That means I can fix broken machines while people yell at me, not that I can fight aliens. The distinction is irrelevant. Your species has made their choice. We depart in 1 hour. Maya stared at him. And if I refuse? Then your species will be judged to have forfeited the trial, and the Kraxian fleet will begin sterilizing your home world tomorrow morning. They're very thorough. They even have a checklist. A checklist? Oh yes, very professional. They start with major population centers and work their way down to small towns. It's all very organized. Maya looked around at the maintenance shaft, at the gravity generator that still wasn't working properly, at the life she'd built fixing other people's mistakes. Then she looked at Ambassador Vex, who was checking his watch with the kind of impatience that suggested he had a schedule to keep and a planet to potentially save. Can I at least grab my tools? Tools are not permitted in ritual combat. Then how exactly am I supposed to fight this thing? Most champions rely on strength, skill, and honor. Maya snorted. Great. I'm 0 for 3 on that list. This is going to go really well. Excellent. I knew you'd see reason. Now we really must hurry. The transport ship is waiting, and they charge by the hour for parking. As they walked toward the station's docking bay, Maya couldn't help but notice that Ambassador Vex seemed remarkably cheerful for someone escorting what was essentially a sacrifice to an alien gladiatorial arena. She was beginning to suspect that the Galactic Council's definition of fair trial might not align with humanity's general preference for not dying horribly. So, she said, trying to inject some casual optimism into her voice, what are the odds that this trial thing is more like a friendly competition than a fight to the death? Oh, it's definitely a fight to the death, Vex replied cheerfully. Very traditional. Very exciting. The betting pools are already quite substantial. Betting pools? Oh yes, you're currently running at about 50,000 to 1 odds against survival. Though I should mention, those odds were calculated before they saw your species' choice of champion. Maya stopped walking. What do you mean by that? Well, let's just say the odds have gotten significantly worse since your registration was processed. Korthak Prime looked like someone had taken a perfectly good planet and decided it needed more dramatic lighting and intimidating architecture. The entire world was essentially one massive arena complex, with towering spires that probably violated several galactic building codes and landing pads that seemed designed more for psychological intimidation than actual functionality. As their transport ship descended toward the main complex, Maya pressed her face against the viewport and tried to process what she was seeing. Is that entire building just for fighting? Oh no, Ambassador Vex replied, consulting his travel guide. That's just the gift shop. The actual arena is much larger. The arena turned out to be a structure that could have comfortably housed several small cities, with architectural elements that suggested its designers had been heavily influenced by both classical Roman amphitheaters and fever dreams. Massive screens displayed betting odds in dozens of alien languages. Food vendors sold what appeared to be various forms of fried things on sticks, and the general atmosphere suggested a county fair crossed with a gladiatorial death match. Maya was escorted through a series of corridors that seemed specifically designed to make visitors feel small and intimidated. The walls were covered with historical displays showing previous champions, most of whom looked like they could bench press trucks and had probably never met a protein shake they didn't like. These are all the previous champions? Maya asked, stopping in front of a display showing a creature that appeared to be made entirely of muscles and bad intentions. Oh yes, that's Gorath the Bone Crusher. He held the championship for 6 years before retiring to pursue a career in motivational speaking. And this one? Anik the Destroyer. Very popular with the crowd. She once defeated 3 opponents simultaneously using only her bare hands in what witnesses described as creative applications of physics. Maya continued down the hall, each display making her feel smaller and less qualified. By the time they reached the end of the corridor, she was beginning to suspect that her main qualification for this job was apparently being too stupid to run away. The final display was different from the others. Instead of showing a terrifying alien warrior, it showed a simple plaque that read, "In memory of champions who tried their best." Below it was a very long list of names. "That's encouraging," Maya muttered. "Oh, don't worry about that," Vex said cheerfully. "Most of those were just unlucky, or insufficiently prepared, or made the mistake of thinking they could negotiate with a Kraxian warrior." They were interrupted by a sound that Maya initially mistook for an earthquake but quickly realized was actually footsteps. Very large, very heavy footsteps that suggested their owner had never heard of the concept of walking quietly. Thorgrim the Unbreakable entered the hallway like a natural disaster with a gym membership. He stood at least 9 feet tall, was approximately as wide as a small building, and had the kind of muscle definition that suggested he treated gravity as a personal insult. His armor looked like it had been forged from the nightmares of smaller, more reasonable weapons, and his face bore the kind of scars that told stories Maya really didn't want to hear. "This is human champion?" Thorgrim's voice sounded like an avalanche trying to learn English. "Yes," Vex replied. "Maya Rodriguez, representing Earth." Thorgrim studied Maya with the kind of intense scrutiny usually reserved for particularly challenging math problems. Maya, meanwhile, was trying to figure out if it was too late to claim diplomatic immunity or sudden onset blindness. "She very small," Thorgrim observed. "Well, humans are generally smaller than Kraxians," Vex explained diplomatically. "She very weak-looking. Humans have different strengths than Kraxians. She looks like scared mouse." "I'm standing right here," Maya interjected. "And I prefer strategically concerned. Thank you very much." Thorgrim's massive head turned toward her, and she got the distinct impression that he was seeing her for the first time as an actual person, rather than just a disappointing piece of furniture. "You make jokes before dying," he said. "This is interesting. It's a defense mechanism. Helps me process impending doom." Most champions try to intimidate Thorgrim before combat. They flex muscles, make threats, speak of honor and glory. "Yeah, well, I don't have muscles to flex. My threats would probably just sound like strongly worded complaints. And my idea of glory is getting through a work shift without anything exploding unexpectedly." Thorgrim considered this. "What do you have?" Maya thought about it. "A really good understanding of mechanical systems, about 15 years of experience dealing with broken things, and what my supervisor calls an attitude problem. These are strange weapons for warrior." "They're not weapons. They're just tools for getting through the day without losing your mind." "Ah," Thorgrim nodded sagely. "You are philosopher warrior." "I'm really not any kind of warrior." "We shall see." Ambassador Vex cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should show our champion the arena facilities? The trial begins in 3 hours." The arena tour was exactly as encouraging as Maya had expected. The main combat area was roughly the size of several football fields, filled with various obstacles, traps, and features that had names like the acid pits of certain doom and laser grid number 7. This time it's personal. Their guide, a cheerful alien who looked like a cross between a tour guide and an executioner, explained each feature with the kind of enthusiasm usually reserved for theme park attractions. "And here we have the gravity distortion fields, which can increase local gravity by up to 15 times normal. Very popular with the crowds, especially when champions get caught in them and become significantly flatter." "Flatter?" Maya asked weakly. "Oh yes, makes a very entertaining sound too. Sort of a pop, followed by a splat." Maya was beginning to understand why the betting odds were so heavily against her. The arena wasn't just designed for combat, it was designed for spectacularly creative forms of losing. "And where exactly am I supposed to prepare for this trial?" "Oh, we have lovely preparation facilities. Old bathroom access, comfortable seating, and a complimentary last meal of your choice." "Last meal?" "Well, probably last meal, statistically speaking. Though I suppose there's always a chance you might surprise everyone." Maya found herself in a small preparation room that looked disturbingly similar to the holding areas she'd seen in crime documentaries. The walls were bare except for a single motivational poster, showing a kitten hanging from a tree branch with the words "hang in there," written in what appeared to be 17 different alien languages. She sat on the small bench and tried to process the situation. In 3 hours, she was going to walk into an arena designed by people who clearly believed that fair fight was a concept for weaklings, face an opponent who could probably punch through solid steel, attempt to represent her entire species using nothing but her wits and whatever tools she could improvise from the arena equipment. "This is insane," she muttered to herself. Then she had a thought. The arena was full of mechanical systems, gravity generators, laser grids, acid pumps, all the various devices that made the arena so deadly. And if there was one thing Maya knew, it was that any mechanical system designed by someone else was probably designed badly. She spent the remaining preparation time in the bathroom, having what she generously termed a strategic planning session, but which was really just an extended panic attack with occasional moments of desperate inspiration. Maybe she couldn't fight Thorgrim directly, but she might not have to. The arena filled with a kind of noise that suggested every violent sports fan in the galaxy had shown up for what they expected to be a very short, very decisive entertainment event. The crowd was a mix of species that Maya couldn't identify, but they all seemed to share a common appreciation for watching smaller beings get systematically destroyed by larger ones. The announcer's voice boomed across the arena in a language that sounded like someone gargling gravel, followed by what Maya assumed was a translation, "Ladies, gentlemen, and various other forms of sentient life, welcome to Korthak Prime for today's trial by combat." Maya stood at one end of the arena, wearing what the organizers had generously called combat gear, but which looked more like exercise clothes with delusions of grandeur. At the other end, Thorgrim emerged from his preparation area wearing full battle armor that looked like it had been designed by someone who wanted to make sure their opponent knew exactly how doomed they were. In the red corner, representing the proud warrior tradition of the Kraxian Empire, we have the undefeated, the unstoppable, the unbreakable Thorgrim. The crowd erupted in cheers, roars, and what Maya assumed were the alien equivalents of enthusiastic whistling. Several spectators began throwing things into the arena, though whether these were flowers or weapons, Maya couldn't tell and didn't particularly want to find out. And in the blue corner, representing the upstart species known as humanity, we have, the announcer paused, clearly consulting his notes, Maya Rodriguez, who apparently fixes things for a living. The crowd's response was notably less enthusiastic. In fact, Maya was pretty sure she heard someone ask for a refund. Several aliens began consulting their betting slips with expressions that suggested they were reconsidering their financial decisions. "The rules are simple," the announcer continued. "Combat will continue until one champion yields, becomes incapacitated, or is rendered into a state where continued combat is not feasible. The arena's various features are considered part of the challenge. Good luck to both champions, and may the best warrior survive." A horn sounded, and Thorgrim immediately began charging across the arena toward Maya with the kind of speed that suggested he'd been practicing this exact scenario. Maya, meanwhile, did what she did best when faced with an overwhelming problem. She took a step back, assessed the situation, and decided to approach it from a completely different angle. Which is to say, she ran. And the human champion immediately adopts a defensive strategy. The announcer called out, which Maya thought was a polite way of saying she's running away like her life depends on it. But as she ran, Maya was studying the arena's layout with the kind of focused attention she usually reserved for complex mechanical problems. The gravity distortion fields were controlled by generators positioned around the arena's perimeter. The laser grids operated on a predictable timing sequence. The acid pits had drainage systems that suggested they could be overridden. This wasn't just an arena. It was a machine. A very large, very dangerous machine designed to create entertaining forms of combat. And Maya had spent her entire career dealing with machines that didn't work the way they were supposed to. Thorgrim's first swing missed her by inches, his massive weapon carving a groove in the arena floor that was probably going to require some serious maintenance work later. Maya rolled under the swing and kept moving, using the arena's obstacles as cover while she continued her analysis. The human champion continues her evasive maneuvers while Thorgrim demonstrates his tremendous destructive power. The announcer reported. Maya was beginning to suspect that evasive maneuvers was sports announcer code for running around like a crazy person. She ducked behind one of the gravity field generators and took a closer look at its control panel. The interface was in a language she couldn't read, but mechanical systems had their own universal language, and Maya was fluent in that particular dialect. Power input, control circuits, safety overrides that were probably designed by the lowest bidder. Thorgrim rounded the generator and swung again, missing Maya but hitting the control panel directly. Sparks flew, alarms began sounding, and the gravity field immediately began fluctuating wildly. It appears the arena's safety systems are experiencing some technical difficulties. The announcer called out, which Maya thought was another polite way of saying things are starting to break in interesting ways. The crowd seemed to love it. Nothing made a gladiatorial combat more exciting than the possibility that the arena itself might malfunction and create entirely new forms of danger. Maya kept moving, leading Thorgrim on a chase that appeared random but was actually taking them past every major system control point in the arena. Each time he attacked, each time he missed, another piece of arena equipment sustained damage. The laser grid control suffered a direct hit from his weapon. The acid pit circulation system took a glancing blow that left it sparking and making concerning noises. This is highly irregular. She heard Ambassador Vex calling from the VIP wing area. The champion is supposed to fight, not run maintenance inspections. But Maya wasn't running maintenance inspections. She was conducting a systematic analysis of the arena's failure points, and her opponent was unknowingly helping her identify every single vulnerable system. By the time Thorgrim realized that their chase pattern wasn't random, half the arena's control systems were damaged, sparking, or making the kinds of noises that suggested they'd been designed by people who had strong opinions about planned obsolescence. Human Thorgrim called out, his voice carrying across the arena. You run like coward, but you run with purpose. What is your strategy? Maya paused behind the central control console, breathing hard. You really want to know? Yes, Thorgrim respects tactical thinking, even from small scared human. I'm not running from you. I'm leading you around the arena so you'll break everything that makes this place dangerous. Thorgrim stopped advancing and considered this. You used Thorgrim's strength against arena itself. Exactly. You're basically a very large, very effective wrecking ball with anger management issues. This is clever. Thorgrim approves. You approve of me using you as a tool? Thorgrim has been many things. Tool is not worst thing Thorgrim has been called. Maya stared at him. Are you actually enjoying this? Combat is combat. Clever combat is even better. But now Thorgrim knows your strategy. Yeah, that's the problem with explaining your plan. People tend to stop cooperating after that. Thorgrim raised his weapon again, but this time his approach was more cautious. He was no longer the mindless force of destruction Maya had been counting on. He was thinking, adapting, and that made him significantly more dangerous. But Maya was thinking too, and she just noticed something about the central control console that gave her an idea. An insane, desperate, probably suicidal idea, which, given her current situation, made it exactly the right kind of idea. The central control console was a monument to the kind of engineering philosophy that prioritized impressive displays over practical functionality. It stood 12 feet tall, covered in blinking lights, holographic displays, and enough switches and buttons to run a small space station. It also had exactly the kind of obvious design flaw that Maya had learned to recognize, a maintenance access panel right at the base, that secured with what appeared to be standard universal fasteners. You know what I love about arena designers? Maya called out to Thorgrim as she circled the console. They always assume the people fighting are going to be too busy trying to kill each other to notice that their fancy death trap is held together with the mechanical equivalent of duct tape and hope. Thorgrim approached more carefully now, his weapon ready but his movements calculated. Thorgrim does not understand human words. I'm saying this whole place is a maintenance nightmare waiting to happen. Look at this control system. They've got primary power, backup power, emergency power, and probably a hamster wheel somewhere running the lights. But I bet they've all got the same central override. She knelt down and began working on the access panel with her fingers, trying to manipulate the fasteners without proper tools. The problem with making everything connected is that everything is connected. One little problem in the wrong place, and the entire system starts falling apart. "Human Maya," Thorgrim said, and there was something almost respectful in his voice. "You think like engineer, not warrior." "That's because I am an engineer, not a warrior. I look at problems and figure out how to fix them. Right now, my problem is that I'm in an arena full of deadly traps fighting an opponent who could probably arm wrestle a small starship. So I need to fix that problem." The access panel came free, revealing a tangle of cables, circuits, and connections that looked like they'd been installed by someone who believed that organization was for people who lacked creativity. Maya studied the layout for a moment, tracing power lines and data connections with her eyes. "Found it," she muttered. Thorgrim moved closer, clearly intending to stop whatever she was planning, but Maya had already identified the system's primary weakness. She grabbed the main power coupling and gave it the kind of sharp twist that every mechanic learns for dealing with connections that don't want to cooperate. The arena's lighting immediately shifted from dramatic combat ambience to emergency maintenance mode. Alarms began sounding throughout the complex, and the various arena features started behaving in ways that their designers had probably never intended. "And now," Maya announced, standing up and dusting off her hands, "we get to see what happens when someone tries to run a gladiatorial death arena using the same quality control standards as a shopping mall." The gravity distortion fields, no longer receiving proper control signals, began cycling through their entire range of settings. Areas of the arena floor randomly became weightless or increased to crushing gravity, creating a patchwork of physics that would have given Newton a headache. The laser grids, designed to fire in precisely timed patterns, lost their coordination and began firing randomly. Instead of creating deadly barriers, they created a light show that looked like a disco had been designed by someone with a serious grudge against the concept of rhythm. The acid pits, deprived of their circulation pumps, began backing up. But since Maya had noticed earlier that the arena's maintenance staff had been using industrial-grade cleaning soap in the drainage system, the backup created something that looked less like deadly acid and more like the universe's largest bubble bath. "What have you done?" Thorgrim asked, staring around at the chaos that had erupted throughout the arena. "I've turned your sacred arena into what it actually is. A bunch of overly complicated machines running on a shoestring budget with minimal maintenance oversight." The crowd was in an uproar. Some aliens were cheering at the unexpected entertainment value, others were demanding refunds, and several appeared to be taking bets on which system would fail next. The announcers were struggling to provide commentary for a situation that had moved well beyond their prepared scripts. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is highly irregular. The arena appears to be experiencing what can only be described as a comprehensive systems failure." Maya looked around at the chaos she'd unleashed and felt a familiar sense of professional satisfaction. This was what she did best, taking complicated problems and reducing them to their essential components. The arena had been a complicated problem designed to kill her. Now it was just a broken machine. And broken machines were something she understood. "Thorgrim," she called out, "I need you to know that I'm not actually trying to kill you. I'm just trying to level the playing field." "The field is very unlevel now," Thorgrim observed, watching as a section of the arena floor became weightless and began floating chunks of debris in a lazy spiral. "Yeah, but now it's unlevel for both of us. The question is, who's better at dealing with things that don't work the way they're supposed to?" Thorgrim considered this while dodging a laser blast that had gone completely off its programmed path. Thorgrim is warrior. Thorgrim fights things that work properly. "I'm a mechanic. I fix things that don't work at all." She began moving through the arena again, but this time she wasn't running. She was navigating, using her understanding of the failed systems to predict where the dangers would be and where the safe paths might exist. The gravity fields followed a pattern based on their power cycling. The laser grids were firing randomly, but random still followed certain rules. The bubble bath was actually creating safe zones where the soap neutralized the arena's other hazards. Thorgrim tried to follow her path but quickly found himself caught in a gravity field that made him weigh approximately 3 times normal. He struggled against the increased weight while Maya walked casually through a gap in the laser grid that existed only because she'd calculated the timing of the system's bomb malfunction. "This is not honorable combat," he called out. "No, it's problem-solving," Maya replied. "I've got a problem, which is that I'm supposed to fight you in an arena designed to kill me. So I changed the parameters of the problem." She'd reached the center of the arena, where the main control console continued to spark and malfunction. The maintenance access was still open, and Maya could see exactly what she needed to complete her plan. "The thing about arenas like this," she continued, pulling out cables and rerouting connections with the kind of casual confidence that comes from years of experience with uncooperative machinery, "is that they're designed to be spectacular. But spectacular and reliable are usually mutually exclusive concepts." The arena systems began responding to her impromptu rewiring. The gravity field stabilized into a pattern that created a series of stepping stones leading directly to where Thorgrim was struggling. The laser grids realigned into a configuration that formed walls and barriers instead of random dangers. The bubble bath began draining in a controlled manner that revealed hidden passages and maintenance tunnels. "What she's doing shouldn't be possible." Maya could hear Ambassador Vex shouting from the viewing area. "The arena systems are hardened against tampering." "Yeah, well, they were hardened against tampering by people who understood the systems," Maya called back. "I'm tampering with them as someone who understands why they don't work." The confrontation that followed wasn't the epic clash of steel that the betting pools had anticipated. Instead, it was a methodical dismantling of an opponent's advantages through superior knowledge of the environment. Maya moved through the tunnel like water, appearing and disappearing around corners while Thorgrim struggled to follow. She'd shut off the main lighting and switched to emergency illumination, creating a maze of shadows that she could navigate by memory, but that left her opponent disoriented. When Thorgrim finally managed to corner her near a junction box, Maya was ready. "You cannot run forever, small one," he said, raising his weapon. "I'm not running," Maya replied, and flipped the main power switch. The tunnel plunged into darkness. In the silence that followed, there was only the sound of Thorgrim's heavy breathing and the gentle hum of backup systems coming online. Then came a series of mechanical clicks, the sound of someone who knew exactly where every valve and switch was located. When the emergency lighting flickered back on 30 seconds later, Thorgrim was standing in 3 inches of rapidly rising water. His armor now a liability rather than protection as the added weight made movement even more difficult. "The water main feeds through this section," Maya explained conversationally, perched safely on a dry pipe above the flood. "Amazing what you can learn from maintenance manuals." Thorgrim's weapon was now too heavy to lift effectively, and his footing was treacherous on the wet metal flooring. When he finally slipped and went down with a crash that echoed through half the building, Maya was already moving toward the emergency exit. "This is victory by trickery, not honor," Thorgrim called after her, though he didn't sound particularly angry about it. "This is victory by doing my homework," Maya corrected. "Also by being small enough to fit in maintenance tunnels, which isn't exactly a character flaw I was planning to overcome." The arena's automated systems, confused by the unexpected flood and the combatant's location in a non-combat area, took several minutes to declare an official winner. When they finally did, Maya was sitting in the control room she'd started from, eating a sandwich and reviewing the building's plumbing schematics to make sure she hadn't caused any permanent damage. The victory was noted in the record books with a footnote about unconventional venue selection and innovative use of facility resources. The betting pools were in chaos, and Maya went back to work the next morning with a reputation that would make her maintenance requests considerably easier to get approved. Thorgrim, once he'd been extracted from the flooded tunnel and dried off, sought her out to offer what he called proper respect for clever victory. He also asked if she might be interested in helping him design some training scenarios that didn't rely entirely on brute force. Might learn something from your methods, he admitted. Though I still say maintenance tunnels are not proper combat venue. Neither is getting challenged to single combat at your day job, Maya pointed out. But we work with what we have. The story spread through the arena community with the speed of really good gossip, gaining embellishments with each telling. Within a week, Maya had received 3 more formal challenges, all of which she declined on the grounds that she had actual work to do. She did, however, post a notice on the arena bulletin board offering consulting services for creative problem-solving and facility optimization. Her first client was someone who wanted help figuring out how to move a concert grand piano to the 3rd floor of a building without a freight elevator. Her second was Thorgrim, who had decided that his training regimen needed to include more than just hitting things with progressively larger weapons. The maintenance tunnel was cleaned up and returned to its original purpose, though it was never quite the same. Some said you could still hear the echo of that battle in the pipes on quiet nights, though that might have just been the building settling. Maya kept the official victory certificate in her toolbox, right next to her multimeter and her collection of spare fuses. It wasn't the most conventional trophy, but then again, it hadn't been the most conventional victory either. And if anyone ever questioned her qualifications for a particularly challenging repair job, she could always point out that she was the only maintenance technician in the building who had officially defeated a 9-foot-tall warrior in single combat, even if she had needed to flood a tunnel to do it.